These days, there are two major routes for getting your book into the hands of your readers: traditional publishing and self-publishing. In this video, we'll compare the pros and cons and give a getting started guide for each route. Hi, I'm Kat, creator of The Novel Factory. The Novel Factory is novel writing software designed to take you all the way from story concept to publication. Each of these videos has an accompanying text article, which can be found on our website. If you like these videos, then please support us by hitting the subscribe button. Let's take a look at the pros and cons of traditional versus self-publishing. First, traditional publishing. The pros are that you get validation by industry professionals, industry guidance and support, your editing and marketing costs will be covered, and of course you get access to marketing expertise and resources of those in the industry, plus you get increased access to markets. The main cons are that there is a very high barrier to entry and your profits are split with your agent and publisher. You end up with a loss of creative control and the process can be extremely slow. If you go the self-publishing route, then you retain full control over your product. There is a lower barrier to entry, and also you get to keep a higher proportion of your earnings. On the downside, professional expertise must be paid for out of your own pocket, and there are significant marketing costs and efforts involved. Also, you have more limited access to the market. When deciding whether to go the traditional or self-publishing route with your book, and there's no law saying you can't go different routes for different books, you should think about what your ultimate goal is. If critical acclaim, literary prizes, and seeing your books on the shelves of Waterstones and Barnes & Noble is what you dream of, then traditional publishing is probably the way for you. But if your priority is getting your work into the hands of readers quickly and retaining creative control, then self-publishing will most likely work better. Now, let's take a look at both of these routes in more detail. We'll start with traditional publishing. In this section, we'll focus on getting an agent rather than all the way to getting published, because once you've landed an agent, they will be the one to personally guide you through the rest of the publishing process. We will cover finding the right agent, preparing your submission, and dealing with rejections. Finding the right agent. Not all agents are equal. You will need someone who you can have a professional working relationship with that will potentially last decades. So it's important to find someone that is good at what they do and who is thrilled to be a champion of you and your work. Step 1 is to create a long list. Using a database, you can search for agents in your country who represent your genres to instantly get a long list. You could also add agents to your long list because you've met them in person at events, made contact with them via social media, or because they represent your favourite authors. Step 2 is to create a shortlist. Once you have the list of all the generally suitable agents, you can start to whittle them down to ones who you feel a stronger connection with. There are a few ways you can do that. Their official bio can usually be found on their agency website and is a basic first port of call. Does their bio appeal to you? What subgenres do they mention? Do they list any specific types of books they're after? Do they say they love any books that you also love? Another good idea is to see what other authors they represent. Obviously, it's not possible to read the books of every client of every agent, but if you browse through their list of authors, you may find some of your favourites, which is a great hook. Reading their Twitter feed or Insta is a great way to get a sense of who they are and what's important to them. If they have you in stitches and you find yourself agreeing with what they're saying and sharing, that's a good sign. If it leaves you cold, then they may not be someone you will click with so easily. You can also check what their response and feedback record is like. A fast response, not to mention feedback, is incredibly valuable during the process of submitting. So prioritising agents who have a good track record of replying in a timely fashion makes sense. You can find this sort of data on sites like Query Tracker. Step 3. Batch and order your shortlist. Once you have a shortlist of around 30 agents, Batch them into groups of 6 to query at a time. You can just send to all of them at once if you like, but batching has a few advantages. It means that when you realise after you've started that you want to tweak a line in your cover letter, it's not too late. Also, if you send to your high priority but not top favourites to begin with, you can test the water without blowing your chances. If you get bites, then you know your submission package is solid and you can send to your favourites. If you get nothing, then you might want to make a few tweaks before approaching that dream agent. If you haven't had any requests to see more after the first 30, then you may want to rework your cover letter and/or extract before starting on the next batch. Next, we'll look at preparing your submission. Agents generally ask for 3 things in a submission: an extract of your work, that's the beginning of the novel, usually around 3 chapters, a single-page synopsis, which describes the entire story in brief, and a cover letter, which tells a little more about you. The extract is by far the most important part of your submission. They are what most agents read first, and they are what you are ultimately trying to sell. This means that they have to be as perfect as you can make them. Here are some of the things agents will be looking for in the first few chapters. Basic competence. If the agent finds spelling errors, typos, or poor grammar in the first few pages, it's unlikely they're going to read on. Knowing basic spelling and grammar is a fundamental building block of being a writer, so if the pages fail this test, the agent knows they're not dealing with someone with a professional attitude. A killer first line. Writing an exceptional first line is exceptionally difficult. However, the first sentence is your first impression. If you make a good one, the following pages will be read more warmly. If you make a mediocre one, they will probably read on, but with less excitement. If your first line is terrible, the following sentences will probably not even be seen. Characters. You want to quickly create characters that the agent is excited about spending a lot of time with. There are many ways to do this, but some rules of thumb are they interesting? And do you feel empathy for them? A hook. Can you pique the agent's curiosity and leave them with a question in their mind that they just have to know the answer to? If so, you're on to a winner. Breathtaking prose. Most people who work in the publishing business are in love with words. That means that an elegant sentence can have them swooning. If you can demonstrate your mastery of language in a way that sweeps them off their feet in the first few pages, they will be putty in your hands. Now let's look at the synopsis. Most authors loathe writing synopses, and it is difficult to boil down a whole novel into a single page. But understanding the purpose of a synopsis can help you write a more effective one. Here are 3 reasons an agent wants to see one. One reason agents will read a synopsis is to check the ending isn't going to be a complete disaster. They want to be sure that if they read the entire manuscript, it's not going to end with, "and then they woke up and it was all a dream," or that a period romance isn't going to end with an alien invasion. Another is to check that the structure of the novel is sound. The synopsis can demonstrate if the writer is aware of story structure theory and whether they have used it to good effect. And a final important element is that they want you to prove that you can do what's asked of you. Being a writer isn't all about hiding away in your turret banging out words. You may have to do reviews, summaries, pitches, and interviews. The agent wants to know that you're able to rise to these different challenges and that they aren't going to have to deal with a turbulent artiste who refuses to work within set parameters. Finally, the cover letter. The cover letter usually includes a very short overview of the novel and some information about you as an author. Several sources have stated that the main purpose of the cover letter is to prove that the author isn't a lunatic. Or, to put it less dramatically, that they're somebody with a professional attitude and realistic expectations, who the agent will be able to work with long term. Your cover letter should include the title of your novel, the word count to the nearest 1,000 words, and a brief summary of your novel, usually a few sentences for the UK or a few paragraphs for the US. It should also include any relevant background you have. For example, if the novel is from the point of view of a surgeon and you're a surgeon, put that in. Also, relevant writing experience. Have you been published before? Won any competitions or hold writing qualifications? Include those. And finally, it should include personalisation, your reason for submitting to that particular agent. Your cover letter should also include your reason for writing the novel, if it's important and relevant, and it can help to include comparative titles or comp titles. These are published books that compare with yours and help give a flavour of what yours is like. So, that's your submission package, but I'd like to briefly touch on one more thing before we turn our attention to self-publishing: dealing with rejections. The one thing that's almost guaranteed about submitting your work is rejection. For most of us, being turned down can feel like a very personal slap in the face after all the heart and soul we've poured into our pages. To avoid becoming too demoralised, try to remember that the vast majority of writers have had to endure the same thing. It is a rite of passage. Here are a few examples to remind you that many of the most successful books out there had a long and painful road before they achieved publication. These are just a handful examples of the most famous books. You can be sure that there are thousands more stories out there from authors who stuck it out through dozens, if not hundreds of rejections, then went on to achieve their dream of publication. Now, let's move on to self-publishing. We've split the info into 3 sections: preparing your book, publishing your book, and marketing your book. First, preparing your book. In order to upload to self-publishing platforms, you need to have a file of your novel in the correct format, in other words file type, with the correct formatting, how it looks. If your novel is formatted poorly, with strange fonts, uneven margins, or random breaks, then your readers might lose faith and stop reading, or not buy in the first place. Cover design. People always judge books by their covers. There's just no getting around it. If you can afford a reputable professional cover designer, then that's highly recommended. If not, you can use an app such as canva.com to create your own. Blurb. You will need a compelling summary of your book to hook potential readers. You can use your premise and short synopsis as basis for writing this. It's also very useful to read the blurb of other books in your genre to learn how to write yours better. Next, publishing your book. Ebook platforms use categories to help readers find the books they like. The more specific you can be with your subcategory, the more likely you are to find the right readers. Decide on ebook or print or both. You can choose to publish your book as an ebook, which means it is available electronically for people to read on devices such as Kindle, Nook or Kobo. If you want your book in print, then you can do print on demand, where a copy of your book is printed only when someone orders it. Or you could decide to pre-print a batch of books, but this involves high upfront costs, so unless you're confident you're going to be able to sell them, this is a risky option. Publishing platforms. There are 4 major self-publishing platforms and a range of smaller ones. It's also worth knowing about aggregators, which are services that submit your work across multiple platforms to save you time. You can publish on multiple platforms to maximize your reach, but some may offer preferential deals for exclusivity. It's difficult to know how to price your book. You don't want to undervalue it, but you need to be competitive. In order to decide on the most appropriate price for your book, check out where the competition has placed theirs. And finally, marketing your book. A good launch can make or break your book's chances of success. This will involve identifying your niche, perfecting the design, mastering categories and keywords on the sales platforms, networking, and promotions. After launch, you'll still need to work hard to market your book. This could involve building up a personal following on social media, building a mailing list via your website, working out your USP, giveaways, promotions, social media or print adverts, attending events and conferences, and getting glowing reviews and testimonials. I hope you found this introduction to publishing useful. There is far more detailed information, including useful links, available on the text article, so please do check that out. And don't forget to check out the Novel Factory. You can try it completely free for 30 days, no strings attached. This was the final video in the Novel Writing Roadmap series. You can check out our other videos or visit our website for heaps more free resources for writers.